Well, it's great to see everybody. I thought we had a very successful Lunch and Learn series last spring. And it really, as I was getting better and back to work, it was really important for me to go back to what I would call my roots. And that is the community work that I like to do, talking about issues that are important to my constituents, and of course, making sure that each and every day we start to build each other up with more knowledge and arm ourselves and our families with the best information to keep them as safe as possible throughout the day, throughout the year, and of course throughout the future. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I just wanted to first and foremost say thank you to my friend Joe Price. Joe, I saw you. You're videotaping us. We love you. Joe is the general manager here at the Grand, and Joe also. Who remembers PJ Quigley's? Of course you do, everyone. Joe owned PJ Quigley's. See, oh yes, an old Nepean institution. And I'm just really happy that he's invited us here, but it's also a very important reason that Joe wanted us here today is he was one of the very first people on the ground level in our rugby community here in Nepean to say enough is enough, we need concussion legislation in Ontario in the name of Rowan Stringer. And Joe, I want to say thank you to you, all of the Barrhaven Scottish Rugby Club, and everyone that 6-7 years ago stood with me, sometimes in the rain, sometimes in the snow, but every time in unity for making sure that this went through. So thank you, Joe, for hosting us, and thank you for being part of all of this. Before I get started and talk a little bit about Rowan's Law, I also wanted to draw your attention to these leaflets that are on your table. We are doing 2 more Lunch and Learns. They're going to be at the new Hampton Inn and Suites, Ottawa West, so right up by the Costco, or as I like to say, closer to my house. And there's 2 really important topics here. The first one is what I called Ontario's dirty little secret, and that's sex trafficking. And that's happening in every single community right across Ontario, and it's happening in every single hotel in Ontario. And it's happening with young girls as old as 11 or as young as 11. So I think if you can join me at that and bring a friend, that I would really appreciate that. The second one, because we're heading into the holidays, we're going to be talking about diabetes. So I know some of you may be struggling with your blood sugar levels, so we're going to have a conversation on that. But today is a really important conversation about concussion safety and awareness. And we often hear about a hockey player, sometimes it's Sidney Crosby, or a football player, and it's big news. It's international news because that impacts the bottom line of a big corporation like a football team or a hockey team, professional level sports. But sometimes what we don't think about is that a concussion can impact the life or take the life of a young athlete, your grandchild, your child, your niece, your nephew, the next door neighbor, the kid you watch playing basketball on a Friday afternoon at school. This reality came crashing down on this community several years ago when Barrhaven's very own Rowan Stringer, a young girl who played ringette, and she played rugby, who wanted to become a nurse and one day work at CHEO, would tragically lose her life while playing just outside the Walter Baker Centre a game of rugby, sustaining her 3rd concussion of the week and dying almost an impact from second impact syndrome from multiple concussions. Rowan's tragedy was a wake-up call for this province. It's been a wake-up call for the world of sport. And it's been a wake-up call for every parent, every coach, every trainer, and every spectator that when a young person, in particular, gets hit in the head, it can have catastrophic consequences. In Rowan's case, she didn't get to graduate. In Rowan's case, she never was able to go to nursing school and work at CHEO. For the past 10 years, her very brave parents, Gord and Kathleen Stringer, have been carrying on her name and her legacy so that we can remind other people that you cannot put a cast on your head. And that sometimes when you get your bell rung, it's the last time you'll hear a sound. That's how serious concussions can be in youth sport. But that's just not all. We recognize somebody could slip and fall out here and have a concussion and their life be changed with depression, difficulty with sight. We know somebody could be in a car accident and that could lead to other complications down the road like ALS or dementia. Or you could be just walking down the stairs and slipping and falling. Concussion is not just about young athletes. That was a place for us to start the conversation. That's why we brought in Canada's first concussion legislation in the province of Ontario. And if you can believe it, after that many years, I think it's been 7 years, we're still the only jurisdiction in Canada that has concussion legislation. So I've promised both Gordon and Kathleen, as their MPP, that Rowan's name will live on. And I was proud to introduce legislation and have it passed by all members of the political parties at the Ontario Legislature in a nonpartisan way to put this move forward. When I was the Minister of Sport, we continued to invest in different things, like looking at what concussion does to mental health. And the guest speaker that we're going to talk to next, he'll be talking a little bit about his work that we were able to invest in, including putting a documentary together on the life of Rowan Stringer. Her death was preventable. It would have been preventable with more knowledge. It would have been preventable with more accountability on the field, with coaches, with trainers, with officials, and yes, even with her and her teammates. So here we are today, wishing we never had to have a lunch and learn about concussions because Rowan would be a nurse today. But she's not. And so through all of you, we are going to carry on her legacy, a legacy that reminds all Ontarians, particularly here in Nepean where it all started, that we must take safety seriously when it comes to youth sport. That we must recognize the challenges, in particular, that women face in understanding our brain health. And knowing that we have veterans among us, one here today, who suffer from concussions that have impacted mental health. Throughout my work, I have been honored to work with a young man who is about a year younger than me. So you're much younger, Tim, with Tim Fleiser. Tim is the head of the Concussion Legacy Foundation of Canada. He has put his entire commitment and drive behind Rowan's Law and expanding the work that we've done here in Ontario to his native Quebec and to many other provinces in the rest of the country. He is a 4-time Grey Cup champion. Impressive. But he's always put brain health first. He's working with an organization, the Concussion Legacy Foundation in the United States, on a brain bank so that we could start to understand the impacts of concussion on those who have had it after they've passed, and he's done remarkable work on that. And he continually builds his team. And as I mentioned, we have a veteran here who's on staff with him, Ryan. Ryan's a Canadian hero, and he not only fought for our country and supported our nation and our allies, he continues to speak out, which is just as courageous on some of the impacts he's had. And they're also joined by Taya, who I've only really just gotten to know. But the level of commitment that they have to continuing on Rowan's legacy is something that I not only appreciate, I'm very grateful for. I think that we need a lot of allies to stand there and to really talk about the impacts of what we are dealing with, whether that's ALS, dementia, CTE, or something near and dear to my heart, mental illness, because I know depression can be a major cause. So without further ado, I would like you to welcome back to Nepean somebody who's here every year, every single year, to support Rowan's Law and Rowan's Law Day in particular. And I'll just actually say this because somebody asked me if today was an anniversary. Rowan passed away in May. About 2 years later, we were able to, on June, I believe, the date's there, June 23rd, we were able to pass the legislation, or maybe it says June 6th, I don't know, I can't see from here. And 7th, okay, it was third time's the charm. We passed the legislation, and when we passed the legislation, we decided that the last Wednesday of every September would be appropriate to remind children in school, as well as on sports teams, that Rowan's Law exists, and really do an awareness push. So today's a very important day across the province. Any of your children or grandchildren that are coming home from school today will probably have talked about concussion awareness. And in large part, that is because of great allies and supporters like Concussion Legacy Foundation. So if you could give a nice big warm welcome to Nepean, to my friend Tim Fleiser, and his team from the Concussion Legacy Foundation.